This is Reckless Airwaves Radio.
This is Rob from The Rob and Slim Show. Check us out every Wednesday on IPMNation.com/live. You are listening to Reckless Airwaves Radio.
This is Mike Scudero, host of the Yapping Yankees podcast, where I yap about the Yanks and nothing but the Yanks. Anything and everything in the Yankees universe. If you're a Yankee fan, this is the podcast for you. A new episode drops every Sunday night, and you can listen on SoundCloud, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. You're listening to Reckless Airwaves Radio.
This is Matt O'Leary from Just Jets, your one-stop shop for all things Jets football. You're listening to Reckless Airwaves Radio.
Hey everyone, this is John Corrigan, host of Corrigan's Corner and the editor of The Wrestling Estate, welcoming you to Reckless Airwaves Radio.
This is Frank Cugino, host of Frank About Sports on YouTube, and you're listening to Reckless Airwaves Radio.
Hello out there. This is Tony Myers, AKA Chainsaw Tony, FMW Leather, Leatherface. And you're listening to Reckless Airwaves Radio. Don't touch that dial.
Reckless Airwaves Radio. This is Frankie McDonald. I'm doing great. You're listening to the Reckless Airwaves Radio.
Hey, this is Reckless Airwaves model Valerie, and you're listening to Reckless Airwaves Radio. Uncensored, unfiltered, unforgiving radio. And be sure to check me out on the site at recklessairwaves.com.
Welcome to Reckless Airwaves Radio. Uncensored, unforgiving radio that's always willing to push the limits. We don't care about political correctness. We don't need anyone's approval, and we do what we want. We are ready to wreck the airwaves. This is Reckless Airwaves Radio.
Hey, what's up, Tony?
How you been?
I'm doing good. How about you? It's been pretty good.
Oh, that's excellent, man. It's supposed to reach like ice temperatures of wind tonight or something like that.
Oh yeah, just for one day though, and then we get back to the 40s and 50s. I think everybody has had enough of this winter, especially the last month. A lot of snow where we are in the Northeast. But before you know it, we'll be suffocating from the heat too. That's the other thing. So you got to kind of, the way I look at it, you have to kind of enjoy these cool temperatures while they last as well. I like the cold.
Yeah, and 4 or 5 months from now, everybody's going to be making posts about how hot it is. And up here, hell, it's only hot 2 months out of the year. So, I mean, right. Yeah, and then I've been stuck with a dual duty this year because my parents go to Florida for like 4 or 5 months out of the year. So dual duty, I got my place, and I have to shovel out my snow, and then I got to go over there and shovel out theirs because, you know, postman, right. My cousin, my sister watches after the house. Yeah, everybody else. So,
right. Well, the good thing about that is you probably just have to do the path to the doors and stuff. You don't have to go too crazy, right? Since nobody's really living there.
Yeah, but I mean, I feel bad because like my cousin has a van. I don't want to like park down the street because you know the streets being the way that they are. Yeah, right, good residential neighborhood and everything, and you know I don't need their parents complaining and you know, God forbid if it comes back to me, you know.
Right. Plus, you want it to look good for the neighborhood. You know, you don't want it to be like the only house that doesn't have it shoveled. Although, I mean, it does melt rather quickly as soon as the temperature goes over 35, 40. But still, that's the right thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, it just looks so gaudy, you know. I mean, might actually kill their property value or something, you know.
That's true. You never know. So, Tony, what are you back at your old job?
Yeah, but this wasn't one of those things of like, you know, oh, yeah, I guess it's time to... No, this was like, sit down, we need to talk. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Not on their end, on mine, you know. It's, you know, I've been on salary for the last for the last 14, 15 months from overseas. So it's not like I'm hurting for money or anything like that, but it just gets to one of those things of like, it's not exactly about the money. It's more about me until I got to go back overseas. So, and it's not one of those, hey, I call the shots, we're going to do things my way. It's one of those, hey, who do you think you're talking to? I mean, so in the meantime, I explored other things and started going back to the gym and even started doing like in-ring wrestling again. So it was one of those deals of just, I can't just sit at the house and try to kill time. It's one of those things of, you got to fill in the blanks of time. There's only so many movies or TV shows or only so many tournaments that you could discover out there or YouTube or things of that nature. So, I mean, but you notice, dude, this is one of the earliest times that we've recorded with each other. So,
probably the earliest.
Yeah, it's provided me with a lot of opportunity of, you can't dump all the work on my back. I don't mind it in one sense because that's always been my work ethic. But in another sense, I know when someone's trying to take advantage of, and let's meet each other halfway.
Right.
Instead of
otherwise, it could only get worse.
Yeah, exactly. And then on top of it too, there's certain things that I expect. There's certain things that they expect out of me. But given my current situation, I'm pretty much trapped in America. But it's all supposed to, and they've. I think I discussed this with you last time about how this time going in, they're refiling for me to have an essential working visa because of the work outside of professional wrestling I do anyway, which is all volunteer, but still benefits somebody else far greater. And so refiling of the paperwork, which God only knows that could take another 5-6 months. So, but still, in the meantime, it's getting me from point A to point B. It's something else.
Right. Yeah. And why is the flights to Japan still not really active? It seems like they are, right? All the flights.
Well, they flat out had like an out-and-out ban when I tried to go back last October. And, of course, I didn't know this because, it changed that weekend of. So, in the meantime, Magic Box Pro, they've got enough content, but nobody there speaks any English. So I've been having to do the commentary on all their DVDs and downloads and everything, the English part, so that, the European and that market out there can get what they need in English because, it's great when it's authentic and it's called in Japanese, but, too, there's a whole untapped market out there of people that speak English that are like, wait, what are they saying? What's going on here?
Right.
So
yeah,
that's kind of sort of where I fall into place.
Well, when are you going back to Japan? Is it just wait and see, or do you have it like marked still for like around Halloween?
Right around Halloween, which, for me is the key and opportune perfect time. But also, too, that's plenty of time for them to put all the ducks in a row and get everything going. And even so, and as it was, in the meantime, I wind up with a lot of people still in my inbox, just the way that people go about angling to try to get a foot in the door over there it's interesting in one sense, but in another, it can get annoying and tedious at times.
Yeah.
But, too, for them to think that you're going to take somebody under their wing, would you at least establish like a friendship or some type of relationship?
What I was thinking right when you were saying that. I was like, do you even know half of these people, or are they just, this is your first conversation, basically saying, help me? That's kind of awkward.
I know. Yeah, on so many of them, I have to scroll up to the top and go, wait, where did this guy come from? Or this one's hit me out of the blue, or, how did this guy kick off this conversation, or where does this person come from?
Right.
And those kind of things. But, I understand coming from where they're coming from, everybody wants that shot. Everybody wants to me, there's right ways and wrong ways. I mean, it's cool when you get, name talent that'll hit you up. And it's another thing, too, when you get somebody from your far distant past who, you know, you were in a battle royal with in Dothan, Alabama, 20-something years ago, and they're like, oh, hey, it's me, Or,
yeah.
I even had one situation, and I can name names. I don't even care at that point. It's I hadn't talked to a guy, it had been about 2 decades, and I was really tight with him, and his brother was an independent manager, just on the indie scene out there in Dyersburg. And, I just stopped in to say kind of hello to the guy and found him on Facebook. And then I said, hey, man, I was tighter with the guy's brother for the most part. And I said, hey, what's your brother been up to? Next thing I know, I get a phone call, and the guy calls me up, and he goes, oh, yeah, hey, my brother Richie said that you wanted to talk to me about wrestling in Japan. I was like, sorry, but what the fuck are you even talking about, man? Yeah, I haven't talked to you in almost 20 years. Yeah, the first thing I said was, no, he's got that backwards, And
right.
in the midst of me saying this, I'm thinking that's kind of rude, but I might as well be upfront and blunt about it, and instead of somebody thinking that, what must cross through somebody's mind when they come up with something like that?
Well, you should have also said, where have you been for the last 20 years?
Yeah, or fill me in, or what's going on, or how you been, or anything, And, hey, whatever happened to that pet you had, or anything is better than absolutely coming out of left field with something like that. But it takes all kinds, And
it does, yeah.
I guess
people worry about themselves.
Yeah. Way far too much more than anything. And two, it's also one of those things. I guess I wasn't very upfront when I was going before, and it's less of a social media thing. So, I would just kind of disappear into obscurity or whatever, and then people would find out, oh, he wrestled in Japan. Oh, I guess he's going back. Oh, I guess he's got nothing for me. But I guess once it became more prevalent, with social media and everything, it's why you see the majority of stuff that I post when I post from over there is not that much wrestling related. Because, I mean, what are you going to do? Take a picture and be like, hey, look at all these people in my line to buy up all my merchandise or whatever. It's just, to me, that was always so gaudy. But, I do sneak some pictures in there, just, frame of reference, get people to have a feeling for the culture and that kind of thing. Especially with the wrestling, too, because majority of people on my Facebook are just people from my past, distant past, and people that I've stumbled along the way with in wrestling. But to me, it shouldn't open. I mean, there's so many guys that I befriended that will come to me and be like, hey, Tony, I'd like you to meet this girl. She's trying to get into Japan. And later on, I messaged the guy back, and it's happened more than once where I'm like, don't go telling people I can get them in anywhere or anything, Right. I have strings, I got some pull, but I'm not going to go to bat for, I don't know. What are you trying to do? Are you trying to bang this girl, or, why me? Why am I the only person that that has people over there or whatever? It's just, it's flat out that ridiculous, Yeah, I guess so. But to me, it's like flat out and out ridiculous, that, and especially when people come to you and they go, would I have to do death matches if I go over to Japan? And it's like, you don't even have a foot in the door, and here you are thinking you'd be on top in the meeting. Like, when do you think they hold death matches? Like, first match on the show, and then everybody has to avoid all the shards of broken glass that are left over? It's completely ridiculous.
It is. Tony, I see that you're getting a lot of podcast interviews, and you're becoming a podcast star.
Yeah, it's always great to get things off my chest. Of course, with you, I guess it's more personable because we go into such depth about a lot of things. But I don't know.
I think it's always good. I think we also have a connection, even though we've never met. Just the fact that I feel like just the fact that we're from the East Coast too. There's a little bit of camaraderie. You're from New Jersey, and I'm New York, so there's that too. As opposed to talking to someone from LA or something like that,
Yeah, also, too, the age bracketing is, we're only about a year or so apart.
And let's not forget the most important thing, Tony, the Twilight Zone.
Oh, yeah. And, I mean, it's so funny because I spent the last week, picking random episodes to fall asleep watching.
Right.
So I'm one of those people that have to have something going on when they're falling asleep to let them know when they're right about. Yeah, I always do that because it's something else that's being crammed into my brain that I could learn from or, take the dialect from and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But also, too, I think what kicked off a lot of the resurgence and reemergence of me doing a lot of podcasts was they had put out there the article, and this was from Ross Ayton. He's a wrestler from Canada who actually made his way down to OVW. And he put out an article how I went from being a teenage tape trader pretty much to just being the last installment of the Leatherface thing in Japan. And I think once that surfaced and a lot of people shared that and retweeted it and that kind of thing, many more people wanted to find out what the deal was or just giving credit in the past and realizing I was just nothing but a super fan that found a way into wrestling. But I think that's what really kicked it all off was that. Combined with that, I've noticed a lot more YouTube hits on some stuff I've done. And two, it was a random wrestling group. And I meant to put this as a Facebook status update. And it was kind of amazing. They brought up when Coco Ware just beat the ungodly crap out of this job guy back in 85 on Memphis TV. So I showed about 10 years later, I had a match with Coco, and Coco just beat the ungodly shit out of me. And I put that, and I put the link up in this group, and the feedback I've gotten off of that has been unbelievable. I mean, the thread is still going with 1 million comments on it. But I tried to explain in there when Coco would deal out those beatings to the enhancement talent. That's just the way that it was back then, and there wasn't really no. Bully is such a buzzword nowadays, or anything like that, or unprofessionalism, or however people want to term it. That's just the way that it was. Breaking in. If you were a job guy in the territory, they tried to run you out of there, and they would, Lawler went through the same thing with the interns. It felt like the beatings from Tojo Yamamoto and guys like that would just get worse by the week. But then at a certain point, they realized this kid must have some staying power. He must want us an awful lot because we haven't been able to run him off with all the beatings that he's had. So that was always one of those criteria things. That was always one of those, the litmus test, the gauge of does this kid belong in wrestling, or can he handle it, or is he tough enough to make it? That was their way of pretty much weeding out people back in the day.
Right. Yeah, you got to earn your stripes, right? That's the way you do it.
Paying dues. And it's so funny because, I guess current day and era without the enhancement talent, there's none of that. There's no hey, does this guy really belong here? It's basically how it's weeded out nowadays is, a lot of bookings, not a lot of money. Let's see if something breaks for this guy, or just hanging around long enough until someone sees something in you. I mean, I harken my story back to dwelling around the independent scene of Japan for 5, 6, 7 years. And, and then in 2001, it was Pogo's bright idea to, all right, look, you're a foreigner. The original Leatherface were having problems with his work visa, and the second one saved his money, so he's opening up he has a ranch with his brother and his wife out Winnipeg. So, it was just, for me, it was by proxy. A guy just, hey, you're hanging around, come here,
Right.
It's kind of the way it was for me, but the Memphis territory would do that. Every time they had a masked guy or somebody they wanted to push, just a character, I guess you could call him nowadays, there I was hanging around, and I had the size, and I could bump a little bit, and I was a young guy, and I was, not willing to put up too much of an argument or fight with anybody of what I wanted to do. So it would always be like Jerry Lawler cocking his head to the side, looking at me, being like, do you think you could get like a stethoscope and kind of like a Dr. Scrubs and got Dr. Death? Yeah, we got this Dr. Death booked around the territory, like all around the surrounding towns. You're not going to be on the loop with it, but let's just give this a whirl, or Super Hysteria Luchador thing, or Wolverine. Right. Like all that crazy stuff is on YouTube. So recently people have brought up to me like, geez, I never even knew you did all that crap. It's like, oh yeah, I was there. I remember every bit of it.
I do remember that. I read that article. That article was from about, I'd say, like 6 months ago. It was a very good article, and I remember it was retweeted all over the place on social media and stuff like that. Now, have the podcasts been good that you've been going on? I listened to spots here and there because they're all fairly new. They've all been within the last 2 weeks, I would say, or so.
Yeah, and the live one that I went on and did with the people from Blue Collar.
Was that like a Zoom or something?
Blue Collar Wrestling. Yeah, Blue Collar Wrestling was one of the shots that I did. It was a couple of years ago. I'd been booked out in the Northwest. It was Bremerton, Washington, for World Underground Wrestling, and then I went all the way up to Portland, Oregon. And I seen so many guys that I knew from before around there. When I went and I did a couple things for Jesse Barr, and this is like, mid '90s, so you can imagine, right? People still hanging around. But so yeah, I knew those guys, and they do their live podcast, and he came to me and he goes, we do a podcast up here. It's relatively well known, and I was like, oh man, I know exactly who you guys are. Because they'd interviewed other friends of mine too, and they've had a lot of name guys on there. So, when you get an opportunity to do something like that, you're like, cool. Even something else I could get off my chest, and, the questions are going to come from left field. And I guess I never get my fill, talking about wrestling or, with people that are in the know and people that are educated. Not anybody that would look at you and be like, why would you do that? Why would you do this wrestling thing? You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah,
Instead, it's people that appreciate it and appreciate, got a Jersey kid being 1,000 miles from home just to be a job guy on Memphis TV. But, it's my first chance to get a chance to make a full-time living wrestling. And, you're 20 years old and you look around and you go, I couldn't do this anywhere else, the WWF's not hiring me, WCW's not. It's like, wow, even if it is Hall in the Ring, after Memphis had their falling out with Buddy Wayne, and Jerry Lawler bought his own ring, and there was poor Harvey Whippleman downtown Bruno, who was having to haul the ring himself before he got back up there as a referee full-time for him. So, and that was before they made him a road agent and all that kind of thing. But, I knew by looking at the landscape of wrestling back then, I'm like, not an awful lot of opportunities for you to make a full-time living doing this. So, and then 9 months later, there I was in Japan because of Memphis. And so, I guess you could say that mine's the kind of story that wasn't meant to really work out the way that it did, but for some odd, bizarre reason, it really did. I mean, I realized how fortunate and lucky. Yeah,
I actually have a question. Now I might have asked, we've done so many interviews over the last couple of years. I may have asked this, but I don't remember asking this. Did you ever, what's the best way to put it? Either get a call or look into going to ECW in the 90s? Because I remember they brought Jason. Now, I don't know which Jason. I know they got so many different versions and stuff. I remember they brought Jason over there in 1995. I mean, he was with the Pit Bulls against the Young Dragons, I think. It was a one-time thing. Did you ever look into going to ECW back then? At least even if it was for like a one-night thing? Because you would have been an unbelievable appearance. That crowd was wild. They would have loved you.
I thought about all that, and when I was doing the ECW style stuff, like when I was wanting to do all the crazy dives and all that stuff, you know, and Jerry Lawler was the worst at just trashing on me and being like, why don't you go back up to Jersey so you get to do all that stupid shit, you know. And Lawler couldn't stand ECW. The whole thing was a shoot, how much how much disdain he had for it. But, and then later on, when they did the whole Memphis versus ECW thing, I already had one foot out the door. I was looking to, you know, get out of Memphis, and routinely I was still going to Japan then. And I ran across the Pitbulls, and I ran across, you know, Public Enemy, and even starting out, you know, I was a job guy for a couple of their tapings going up to, you know, before it was Extreme and all that. And I knew that I had the connections and that kind of thing. And even a guy like Chad Austin, who came through Memphis and wrestled for Burt Prentice's Ozark Mountain Wrestling, which later was North American Wrestling. I never sent feelers back to it because I knew there were so many people trying for jobs there and coming through there. And, you know, Axel Rotten had quit and come to Memphis. And it was after I had a long talk with Axel Rotten where he's like, the first chance any opportunity comes for those guys to get the hell out of there and get a contract with WWF or WCW is like, you know, don't you think that's working backwards? You're already in Memphis. You're already wrestling all the WWF talent. He was like, you know, why would you want to drop what you were doing to go all the way up to the ECW arena, you know, every 3 weeks and, you know, try to get a foot in the door with them? And he was like, you know, hell, because I ran into him when he was on the IWA Japan. And he was like, well, you're already here. You know, like he kind of saw me as the best of both worlds. Like I got Memphis and I'm routinely going to Japan. And that was like a huge, huge, huge sign right there that like, if I stop with it, you know, that would be like me just throwing my hands up, giving up Memphis and then going all the way back out to the East Coast to, you know, make it in a place that pretty much was kind of like a backyard to me, you know. Philadelphia was only 2.5 hours, you know, driving distance from where I grew up. And I saw as time went on, too, that...
I'm not even saying, like, trying to get in there full time. I'm saying to just do, like, a one-time appearance. Maybe, you know, even, like, one of those things where the lights go out or whatever, and then you're in the ring with your chains. You know, something like that is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, I thought about something like that, but I'm like, if anything, they're going to come knocking because, you know, even back then I heard the stories from all the guys that would wind up coming through Memphis, and they're like, Paulie is terrible at calling back people. And
yeah.
I remember talking with Tommy Dreamer when he came down to Memphis, and he goes, they would just push you to the side. He was like, you know, he's like, they have so many tapes and so many promos sent in from so many guys. And, you know, they pretty much talked me down from it. And, you know, I was actually good friends with John Cronus. Perry Saturn, I couldn't stand him from day one that I met him. I mean...
Why?
It's just from day one, he and I never clicked. And I would see the way he would treat and talk to John Cronus, and I was just like, he's not a very nice guy. He never was.
Is he still alive?
He was
very
to the
sick,
best of my
wasn't he?
knowledge, yeah. Yeah, he was homeless there for a whole bunch of years.
Right, I remember seeing that, yeah.
Yeah, then he reset. I mean, I wouldn't wish that upon anybody, but with him, it was just like, you know, a drug habit's one thing. Yeah, I mean, he was just, like I remember, because, you know, I used to ride with him an awful lot. I remember bringing it up to him. I go, you know, what do I have to do to get a good push around Memphis? And Perry Sarah was like, well, no, maybe you should have paid attention when you were in wrestling school. And I just thought, like, what a dickhead thing to say to
that's
me,
a
you know? Like,
big thing to say, right? Instead of trying to help you and give you advice.
Yeah, then I kind of sort of felt like, not like friendship, but kind of bonding in a way, because he would always look at me and tell me what an idiot Cronus was, and there's John Cronus sitting right there. So,
right.
But I never wanted to like jump on that bandwagon because I mean by then, you know, we'd go to get a hotel and he was like, "Look at this shit." He goes, "I can't even send him in there." He goes, "This fucking guy can't even fill out an application." He's like, I swear to God, I'm stuck with the stupidest fucking human being in the world for a partner. But
wow. They're a great team,
even
though.
them, yeah, even them, like even further on down the line, they told me, they're like, why would you give up and drive, or come 1,000 miles back up to, here? And it's like, for them it was full-time work, but they were telling me that there were so many people at that wrestling school, and even to try to get a shot in there, a lot of people had talked me out of it. And it's kind of like, in a weird way, it's kind of like the current situation where I would do what I would do in Japan, and then I would come back, and people would be like, why don't you go to CZW and see if, and I'm like, what? And show up there and be like, I've wrestled DJ. I wrestled him years and years and years ago. He came down from my own Memphis promotion when I was needing job guys, or when I was needing deathmatch guys. And, by then he was the owner. He had just bought CZW, and I always thought that's so corny. Like, he seen me give it full throttle. He's seen me give it everything that I had to give. And it's even now the same thing with, I get asked all the time, why don't you do GCW? And I'm like, because I just see it as me burning the candle at both ends. Like, if I'm going to save the crazy shit off the scaffold and the crazy bumps into barbed wire and all that stuff, you might as well just save for Japan. The money is going to be way better, and you could feel almost like an addiction. You could almost feel the pull. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
To where I'd be telling the Japanese people, oh no, I got a tournament of survival coming up. I can't do Onita's. You know what I mean? Like,
Too
to
much,
me,
yeah.
it would be one of those deals. Yeah, and I always kind of looked at my time back in America as time for me to recover, time for me to, like, I don't know how much detail I've went into about the whole ECW thing, but it was actually the boys from ECW were the ones telling me, you're fine right where you are, because then, like, guys like Axelrod and like guys like Tommy Dreamer, and even Candido, when he came through and he eventually went back to ECW, they were telling me there's just so many people that were trying to get in, and so many people that have been, kind of put on the back burner to even get a tryout with them. So I just kind of, kept my head down, and whatever happened with Memphis happened. But, at the time, routinely going to Japan, I was just like, all right, my bread is clearly buttered there, and, and that kind of thing. And even so, too, I just felt like with the foot in the door in Japan, it would just kind of be like, I had several friends that had went down to ECW and were just pretty much used as enhancement talent guys, and guys that I felt were more talented than me. And I go, well, if they did that with them, they're just going to completely rip me apart. So, for me, always sticking around Memphis, and even as a WWF job guy, I knew the pay was way better than what they were offering up in Philly. But I mean, it was, it was the cool place. It was the cool place to go to and the cool place to be. But I always just kind of had that feeling of resentment that once it became extreme, that I never had like at least a match or two there. You know what I mean? But
yeah,
especially seeing all the crazy stuff that they did. But looking back, I would have been one of those guys for ECW that would have chopped off one of his fucking hands, for the company. I could see me getting the addiction and being one of those crazy guys that went everywhere. You know what I mean? Set up the ring for next to nothing, and I could see that. But I had Memphis where at least I was home every night there.
Right. You brought up CZW. You're over there in New Jersey, closer to that group over there. What's going on with them? Are they even active anymore?
Yeah, that's funny. Because when I said, I never stopped talking to DJ Hyde, and I never stopped talking to Maven Bentley, and obviously I never stopped talking to Matt Tremont. But they felt that, let it die down a bit, let the scandal and, everything that was going on with them. And then it just got to the point.
Scandal, though? What scandal was it again?
It was several things. It was a storm that was brewing. DJ had leased out the footage to all the female wrestling, and it was like a porn company that got a hold of it and repackaged it.
Oh yeah, we talked about that. I remember. Now I remember. I forgot about that. Yeah.
And then on top of it, there were women inside the, I guess the CZW dojo that were, DJ was inappropriate, and two at the same time with the pandemic, and then them going head to head with GCW and that kind of thing. So they weren't running any live shows, and then, on top of other things, it was all the bad pub that was coming out of that. But it's so funny because in the middle of sitting there talking with DJ, and this has been here very recently, today's his birthday, as a matter of fact. So I did wish him a happy birthday, and yeah, he's appreciative. He knows where things got bad and things, he knows at what point it fell off the tracks, but he's a bit more humble now when speaking to him. But on top of everything else, it's really one of those deals where they realize that the damage has been done, and just to try to restart up, or just to say, hey, look at us, we're still running. If he does come back and they do bring it back, it'll be in a spectacular fashion. It's not just going to be a, hey, look, remember us? We're CZW. We're still running. They realize that there's going to have to be an overhaul. There's going to have to be serious changes made. And, they've went this long without running anything. So
right.
The feeling is, why bother? Why rush it? Because at one point I did tell him, I go, Deej, it's one of those things where if you decide to do Tournament of Death in the summertime, you're not going to tell me, even with social distancing, that nobody's going to show up. It's at least going to be profitable for you. Those fans are still out there. It's a matter of giving them the product that they, and that kind of thing. But yeah, it's as current day and time, there's absolutely no movement from him. But, I have this feeling, if he wants to up and go, he'll up and go again. He'll make a go of it. But as of the current time, and I mean, what else could he possibly do?
Right.
It would take take a real swift kick in the nuts to get him off his ass, too. And then not only that, as time has went on, there is nobody at the CZW dojo, and there are no students that they're training, and, they haven't ran in it's been over a year or so, I guess, now.
Wow. Who would have ever thought that, though, if you think back to it, right? I mean, it was, CZW was kind of trying to change their ways and become more mainstream the last many years that they were running. And who would have ever thought after, they were celebrating, 20 years of being a promotion. And then before now look, they're not even, like you said, they haven't run a show in a year. I guess, it's crazy.
Yeah, and I guess
a lot of it has to do with the pandemic, though, but still.
Yeah, and I guess, too, technically DJ has, owned it longer than Zandig did, right? At this point?
Yeah, I think so.
At that
this point, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, they took the barbed wire out of the CZW logo, and they were trying to aim to go more mainstream and that kind of thing.
Yeah, it didn't work.
Yeah, and I mean, I think they realize, majority of the people that are going to hang around getting DJ's ear are the kind of people that are, well, push me, make me champion, instead of people that want to treat it like a business of what can we as CZW do, not just, I need to be a champion. That's the answer right there. So,
right, yeah. Looking out for themselves.
I mean, at one point, when they were running, they had 3 different guys all doing a disgruntled employee gimmick. 3 guys. It's just all right, one I can understand because, I mean, every promotion needs that. A disgruntled guy who's just, who just goes off the rails of, I'm pissed off with this company and here's why. 2 people, I don't know. 3, that might be a sign. When you got 3 people doing the exact same gimmick, This place sucks. I hate it. And here's why this place is a dump, and that kind of thing. To me, it's a bad sign when you got three people doing the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Of saying how dumpy it is.
You mentioned Zandig, and he had that very short comeback 4 or 5 years ago, and he did the thing off the roof again, and I guess he just really messed himself up because you see him on social media, he's like a big Trump guy, and that's about it.
Oh yeah,
he's done. He's done with wrestling. I don't think he can do anything anymore. I think he really hurt his back bad, when he did come back the last time.
It's a 50-year-old man that jumped off the top of a roof and busted his back. And
fucked
man,
it up, right?
Did that not launch? Yeah, did that not launch Joey Janela or what? Joey Janela wound up with so much publicity coming out of it. He just wound up damn near overnight after breaking his ass for 10 years to get somewhere in wrestling. It was just kind of weird and really odd to see, but if you're going to do something like that, you better hope it ends like that, where the clip is shown on ESPN and one thing leads to another. And, I know out there right about now, the cool thing is, like cool in quotation marks, from a lot of the fans out there, appears like the latest coolest trend now is to knock and bash Joey Janela. I don't.
Tony, tell me that we're not on the same wavelength. My next question was going to be to you. I was going to ask you to give your honest opinion of Janela and AEW, and you started the question before I even asked it.
To me, it's an awfully personal thing because he's teamed with a guy that I saw walk into my local wrestling school from day one and be treated like an outcast, and me tapping the guy that owns the show, that owns the entire ECPW wrestling school and telling him, hey, you see that guy? That guy will get signed before any of these other motherfuckers because he stands out so much. And I said that too with another guy that didn't really last, but it was for a lot of different reasons. This guy, Mike 3D, was all pumped up with the giant jacked arms and the huge shoulders. And I go, if anything, they'll sign a motherfucker like that before they sign any of these other guys. And there's no slight to, the guys there that break their ass day in and day out, but I'm sorry, that's just the way the wrestling industry works. You take a guy like Sonny Kiss, imagine him before he even got discovered. I go, that guy sticks out like a sore thumb. And they go, why? Because he's gay? And I go, no, look at him. Just look at that guy. He looks like somebody. And they got Janela teamed up with him. But, somewhere along the way, the last 2 years, everybody just started jumping on this hate bandwagon with Janela. I don't, all of a sudden they're like, he's fat and this, that, and the other. And
you know where some of it's coming from, though, right?
A lot of jealousy, Well,
also Cornette, though, because Cornette's, been beating that drum for like the last 2 years. And, even if you don't like Cornette, you're going to still you're still going to listen to some of the things he says. And when you got someone like Cornette, who some casual fans know who he is from back in the day, and he's constantly calling Joey Janela fat and no talent and stuff. They're not going to look at it themselves and do their own homework. They're just going to say, oh, yeah, that's the guy Cornette says is fat. And then there you go.
Yeah, and Janela was doing the Pro Wrestling Guerrilla and places like that. To even have a foot in the door there, you have to have something special. And there's another buzzword right there, influencers. Recently Dave Meltzer had tweeted out something. There's not a booker in the last 20 years that hasn't been influenced by me and my newsletter. And you know what? To an extent, he's absolutely right. And even with some of the things Cornette says, even though they're very dated, there is a validity of truth somewhere in there.
Right.
And Janela's not going to go and be a Calvin Klein, underwear model any day soon. But it was just because he was so unique, and he did things that made him stand out. And he took these unnecessary bumps and risks, and jumping from the top rope onto the friggin' ring apron where there's no give. And even if you watch some of the stuff from him, I guess it was PWS before they all left and started Wrestle Pro and that kind of thing. But when he started doing the thing where, the future Joey Janela shows up and says, Joey, this is where it all changes for you. Don't do that dive. You're going to get hurt. Stuff like that, to me, I'm sorry, it's just genius, because it had never been really done like that before in wrestling.
Right.
Nothing that far-fetched, and nothing, and I don't care if it is poking fun at the fact that pro wrestling is what it is. To me, if you do something unique and you find a way to grab out and grab someone's attention by doing something that unique, it's great. There was, I remember there was a clip at one point. It was a guy on a hoverboard. What do they call those? The hover things with the two wheels on them. Everybody.
Oh yeah, that comes out of the water.
Yeah, exactly. And okay, so this guy had done a high spot with one of those, but the high spot itself looked like slow, clumsy, and it kind of looked like shit. That's the reason that it didn't catch on. It was a brilliant idea, and the guy is using a hover thing to do a high spot with this guy on an indie show. Well, it didn't quite capture the imagination, versus a guy like Superhuman who caught everybody's imagination because it was a guy, a slow guy that was doing these strange and dangerous and crazy things. And I mean, the way that he would sell things was out and out hysterical. I mean, there's a reason that some things catch on and go viral. The guy diving off the, what was it, like a 2-story balcony in a mall?
Oh, yeah. I remember that. Yeah. It's like in a mall, I think. Yeah.
Luke Hawk's kid or somebody. There's a reason why certain things go viral and certain things don't. And for Janela, all this crazy stuff that he was doing, he eventually had to catch somebody's eye, even if it was on the independent level. But he was able to take that, and, he is where he is. And I don't know. I don't see where all the dissent is, amongst fans of just railing on him. I don't understand. Maybe it's because of the way he responded on Twitter, because he's the one guy that will take out the time to address a fan who said, oh, this sucks, or that sucks, or I don't like this, or I don't like that. Joey Janela will take the time to go on Twitter and be like, hey, fuck you. Here's what happened,
Well,
not many guys will do that. Most will ignore it.
Yeah. Two questions. Just give your honest opinion on it as far as Janela goes. And this is, we're just talking, opinions. Do you like the way that AEW has used him? And I'm not just talking about teaming him with Sonny Kiss. I'm talking about they've given him a crap load of matches against the top guys there, but he always loses. They never have him win. That's number one. And number two, now this is something that you have no control over because, the relationship ended, but him and Penelope Ford was that there was just another level of coolness when they were together. Obviously, she's with the other guy now, the Kip Sabian guy. So it's kind of hard to, he's almost looks like a fish out of water sometimes without her, because maybe just to us, because we watched him with her for all those years. So the first thing is, do you like the way AEW is using him, where he gets so many of these losses against every time he goes in there with a top talent? And the second thing is, did he lose some of that luster without having Penelope Ford with him?
Man, there's so much that you could uncover here. I think the appeal to him on the Northeast Independence was people had known him since he was a kid and trying to get a foot in the door. But it was once he took a step back and he was like, people could almost relate to him when he's saying, hey, I got a whole bunch of Taco Bell. I'm living at my mom's house. And, no, I'm not going to the gym. Yeah, exactly. And he still wound up, that was a way for all the slobs out there to be like, oh man, if that guy bagged him a hot chick, man, yeah, it's possible for me too.
Yeah.
But I think it just didn't translate that well into a national basis, where the people that didn't see him come up on the indies and make a name for himself and the bump with Zandig off the, I just don't think that it latched on a national basis the way that some things click. Orange Cassidy, he clicked.
Right.
And didn't he just win the Observer best gimmick of the year? Yeah.
Yeah, so he was on the cover.
Get it. yeah, they get being lazy or drunk or hungover or stoned. You know, they get Orange Cassidy. It makes sense to those people. With Janela, everybody on the East Coast got it. And I mean, when he started to blow up on the Indies, I was like, it's only a matter of time before someone snatches him. And then AEW came up the way that it did, and you know, but yeah, I think it did take some of the spark out of it with the girl, but God only knows. He's probably up to his neck in rats if he hadn't found another girlfriend.
He's going out with some other girl that's a wrestler that's hot. I can't remember her name, but so it's not that he's, you know, not getting girls with it. I'm just saying, as for the character, I'm saying, you know, they kind of had a whole routine and everything. That's what I'm saying. It kind of ended like right as they were together, like for those AEW big shows, the outs and ins or whatever, all in, and then it was over.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it is what it is. The girl left him. What is he supposed to do?
Yeah, I mean, that's one of those things that, you know, it comes out in real life. I mean,
yeah,
you know,
part of the deal.
Once it's out there, there's no way of taking it back. I mean, word spreads
right.
and people find out. But two, also, I mean, bell to bell, I always looked at his work, whether it was him as Starman and PWS or I don't know. I don't think he ever did it with WrestlePro, but I always thought that was hysterical because he would even do the thing where, because it was on one of those old 8-bit systems or whatever, it would be a glitch where the guy would just keep on walking, even though he wasn't going anywhere. He was just hitting the rope. You know, he would even do stuff like that. So for him, it was always bell to bell. He was always really, really good. I mean, way better than average. And then tie into the fact that, you know, without being cosmetically pleasing and having the physique, I mean, he was as good as he was. And he still is. It's just that, to me, maybe on the national basis.
He's just not chiseled, right?
Yeah, which is another thing I don't understand.
He's
Everybody
not fat.
Like,
I mean,
he's not like Buddy Rose or I don't get it. Like,
he's just not chiseled. Not everybody has to be chiseled.
Yeah, and I mean, wasn't that the appeal of pro wrestling? Is that not everybody is going to be
looks the same?
You know, just super jacked up. I mean,
WWE got a lot of thumbs up when they signed Kevin Owens for the main fact that people were like, finally, someone that doesn't look like a freaking, you know, Abercrombie model.
Yeah, and on top of it, like with the Kevin Owens, I think like guys like him and Janela deserve even more credit, being that they don't look like they're in such great shape, but they're in great enough ring shape for them to get the good matches and have the good matches that they have bell to bell. I mean,
true.
I've always seen that, you know, to me, and I'll credit him even more. The guy was like a smoker, and he was going out there, and he was bell to bell going at it with the PWG guys. I mean, to me, that deserves even more credit. And the fact that, you know, he had a bunch of years and a bunch of matches and a bunch of injuries behind him already. So, I mean, if anything, to me, that's more of a feather in your cap. If you can go and, you know, I dropped Buddy Rose's name. To me, that was always a feather in his cap. As big as he was a pretty nimble guy. Like, it didn't hold him back.
Right.
Adrian Adonis. Adonis was another one. I mean,
the legend.
He lost a ton. Yeah, he lost a ton of weight, you know, before his untimely death. But even so, it was almost amazing to watch him still doing the same bump, the flip over the, you know, tie himself up in the ropes, going backwards, you know, the top rope, middle rope.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to do.
Absolutely.
To me, it was always more of a credit to these guys that they could still do things like that. I mean, I'm trying to think of the right words to say, but I don't know, at one point, and I don't know what the turning point was. I think it was the way that he was addressing some of the fans or talking down to him that were taking their shot at him. Instead of just being like everybody else and just ignoring people. I mean, it makes news on news sites, you know, like it'll be like Baron Corbin goes off on fan on Twitter. And I'm like, that's news, you know, instead of him just ignoring people and not making any news. I mean, what is it that people really want? I mean, I guess with Janela too, even with me, it's on a personal note too, that he's always been good to me, and it never really changed, even once his name blew up. You know, he was still just Joey Janela, you know.
Yeah.
But he found a way, and then I think it's at the point where people just kind of look at him and go like, well, if you notice, like, people's physiques changed drastically. Like, Kevin Owens did lose a lot of weight and did pick up some muscle, you know, when he started with WWE. And to this day, you know, he looks in a lot better shape than he did at Ring of Honor.
Right.
And even Sami Zayn, you know, he's got some bulk on him now. You know, he's not just thin and lanky like he was before. But I think people figure by looking at Janela that, oh, he'll have to come around. He'll have to get himself in some kind of shape. And, you know, I remember Dave Meltzer brought this up years ago. What would you rather see? Would you rather see a Joey Janela do all the moves that you know are going to be like, you know, all the same stuff that he does over and over again? Or would you see him come up with a creative spot where, I remember at one point, and it made like all the botch reels and everything, where he tried to walk across both opponents' backs and get the hot tag. And he slipped off the second guy's back or whatever, and everyone was like, look at that, he fell on his face. What would you rather see? Would you rather see younger guys and guys of the newer generation doing stuff with difficulty and botching a couple things here and there? Or would you rather guys just sit in an arm bar and just be content with not botching anything and keeping it as simple as possible? Right. I kind of tend to rather see guys take their chances and put it all out there and go all out. You know, I'd much rather see that than guys botching things here and there. I'd rather see that than guys being content with just sitting in a side headlock and, you know, taking the guy over to the mat.
Right. Yeah. True. You know, I agree with all that.
Oh, too, one of the other things I wanted to point out about the ECW, that had been before I was given the whole leather gimmick and everything. Like, I don't think that while I was doing the Uchu Meijin Power or any of the goofy stuff I did in like IWA Kokusai, and Go Ryuma would come up with like a different promotion seemingly by the month because he kept finding new backers. But, you know, the Black Mummy or White Mummy or any of the other, one of the Demon Oyas, Uno and Dos, even though it was portrayed by, you know what it was? You would walk into places like that and they would have a whole net full of gimmicks. And whoever did the gimmick last would take the gimmick home, complete with the mask, wash it after they were done, and then they would return it. So it would be in a giant net, you know, like it almost looked like a baby's like pen, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It would almost look like a baby's crib, you know, the safety thing, you know, they have the net instead of like the wooden. Well, they would have that set up, and even at SPWF, the Social Pro Wrestling Federation, they would do that at times. I wound up a couple of years ago going back to an old gimmick that I had in the early 90s, the Murderer. They would just toss that on any young boy, really. They had the regulars or whatever, but, I mean, a lot of those gimmicks on those shows would be all masked. So, I mean, you could wrestle 2-3 times on the same, you know, card or whatever and be 2-3 different guys. Right. You know, I remember one time to get myself just to walk different so that it wouldn't appear to be me, I put my boots on the wrong feet so I'd at least be able to walk different and kind of look different when I was doing things. But, yeah, it was ECW, and to go in there and do a shot, there wasn't really anything spectacular I was doing at the time. I think with the leather thing, you know, ECW by then had been, I guess they had been shut down, because it was like 2001 when I started doing it for Pogo. So, yeah, I was, I guess time had passed me by too much for that. but Yeah, but thinking about the Janela thing, it was either, I think that awfully hurt him an awful lot more, I guess, because of the girl. But two, even without taking the girl out of the equation, just him by himself, there were, I guess, a large percentage of fans that just didn't get why this, why the Northeastern guy that didn't bother to get in the gym. You know, obviously he had the moves and he could do a lot of things. Otherwise, he never would have gotten noticed. But there's just, I would love to get into the average fan's head and just ask them, like, you know, what is it about the guy that this just irks you, that you just don't like? You could listen to Cornette and you could listen to his co-host, like, rail on this guy all you want, but that's only the opinion of two guys either with an agenda or that just don't like him at all.
Right.
But, I mean, it can't speak for everybody else that, you know, just sits there and continually takes shots at the guy with the way that they do.
I just think that, and this is just my opinion, I just think that they could have, or they could, you know, just give him a few wins here and there. Right? If you don't want him to beat Omega, that's fine. You don't want him to beat Moxley, that's fine. But, I mean, you can't have him go out there and just lose every single match against every. I mean, you can't tell me a match that he won against Hangman or any of these guys since he's been there. He's won some, you know, tag team matches. He has won some singles matches against, like, the guy who's I don't know if he's like a librarian guy. I don't know, but he hasn't beaten any of the big names. I mean, it's got to bother him. Let's be honest. I mean, he was like you know, he rarely lost on the indies. He was the hot guy on the indies. He headlined shows, you know, won all the titles on the indies, and then he goes there and it's like, but you just can't beat any of these guys. It's got to bother him. Yeah.
I think, too, tie into it, like, look at the perception of Kenny Omega when he went to, I mean, it was dubbed by a lot of people to be a big flop because it was coming out of, you know, as far as work ethic and work rate goes, I mean, you look at New Japan, it doesn't go any higher than that. So when Kenny Omega winds up on national TV in America, people are looking around going, where's all this spectacular 7-star matches? And, well, he's not in there night after night with Okada. And it doesn't translate as well because Kenny's, you know, he's fluent in Japanese and you know, that's the style that he was doing was catered to the people that were fans of New Japan Pro Wrestling. I mean, but you can't, nobody can sit there and tell me that. And I've, you know, listened to all the Cornette criticism. You know, what is it? Finger bang or McFinger bang, whatever the hell he calls
the way he gets half any of that stuff, really. Just weird.
It's like you can't sit there and tell me, oh, he's so effeminate. Does he look tough to you? No, he's done all that strong style stuff. And I mean, like, the man is a cardio machine. I mean, to put up with the long draws that he has put up with, and you know, even from everybody assumes that DDT is nothing but jokes, and no, to hang and bang with the DDT guys, you have to have, you know, you have to have in you a set of go. You know, your cardio has got to be through the roof because for all the jokey stuff, there's still plenty of fodder in the middle of that, in the midst of that. You know, there's still all the tackle drop down, reverse hip toss and arm drags and monkey flips and dives to the outside and that kind of thing. There's still all of that you need to have. Otherwise, you're not going to make it, you know, especially with DDT. You know, even me, I mean, it's so funny because, you know, earlier today I told you, I'm like, oh, I'm getting out of work at 2. Well, can you imagine what I did from 2 o'clock until now to simply put, I went to the gym. And, I mean, it feels like my arms are going to fall off. They feel like they're burning and on fire. But, yeah, I mean, a lot of times in the gym, don't necessarily need, you know, earbuds, you know, to keep me motivated and keep the fire burning in me. I mean, I think of, like, all the stuff that I see and what it's going to take for me to continue to compete at the level that I need to. And, you know, I'm 47 now. But inspiration comes from such strange places, and that's definitely one of them. I mean, when you see Guys breaking their ass, especially on the Japanese independent scene. And these guys aren't making the most money. They're making better money than the indies here. And there's much more paid indie work, overseas. Better paid indie work and more guys that you could work with that are really good. It's really speaks volumes. It'll bring out the best in you, no doubt about it. It's one of my best friends, Takase. How many times I've walked up to that guy and he'll just grab my wrist and we'll just start reversing a bunch of shit and just goofing off. And next thing we knew, it's like, no, I start like I start like breaking out in a sweat, and I'm like, man, we've been going at this for like a couple minutes now, like this got to end. But we'll just do that out of necessity, just out of habit, the switch in, turn ins, and reversing the hammer locks, top wrist locks, and all that stuff. That's just the way that most guys are in Japan. It's just so universal, and I try to tell that to guys. I was telling that to guys the other day. Working out at a local wrestling school up here. Same place that I met old Sonny Kiss, and a lot of the old names are still there. I'm like, wrestling is so universal that the minute that you grab a hold and you start going into, side headlock, hammer lock, and all that stuff, I'm like, it is so universal that in Japan, you don't have to call anything. You don't have to, lucky for me, I mean, not luck, but as the way would have it, because I'm fluent with the language, but you don't necessarily have to communicate like every move or whatever. You just have your cutoff points and get me from point A to point B to point C. But in the meantime, there's plenty of time in between that, there's a feeling out process. You know what I mean? Like, of when you throw somebody into the ropes and you call something, you're like, either they're going to get it or not. But you're already prepared in your own mind to do, what am I going to do if this guy botches this, doesn't understand this? And it's like, majority of them will just put on the brakes and be like, no, I can't understand. And okay, all right, we're back from the line. Other ones that do go through with it, you're prepared in the back of your mind to go, all right, if this doesn't go right, what am I going to do? Grab a hold. That's simple. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I try to keep it basic or whatever, but 2021, of course the last time I was there was last year, 2020. It doesn't have to be that basic, or my idea was always to keep my hands on somebody and not let them get to the opposite part of the ring, because then there's all kinds of room for error there. For me, it was always keep them close to me. This way you can continue to tell them and walk them through whatever you need them to. And two, at no point do they get lost, because not only are you feeding, you have a hand on them. So they're not getting far from you to screw anything up.
Right.
It's just the way that I think and the way that I operate and the way that, has been taught to me, and things that I've noticed, which is one of the strangest things, when someone gets away from you and you don't know what they're going to do, and they don't have a clue as well, I cut them off. Do I rake their eyes? Where are we at here in this part? You don't really have to. You don't need all that. You don't need to know all that. It's so universal that you could tell if somebody's good, they're going to know what to do on the fly anyway.
Right.
And if not, somebody has to slow down and take it from the wind. And, all right, his chance to sell. His time to shine. His time for this. His time for that. Not only that, you listen to people long enough, you could feel it. I hope any of that made any sense, because
no, I understood it. I understood all of it. Yeah.
It's people think that you need to walk through every single move when you're calling things back there. That only makes things worse, because then you see guys panic when things don't go that way, and then it takes forever seemingly to get back on track with what you're supposed to do or what you were supposed to do.
Right.
But there's more than one way to get it. There really is.
Yeah. Let's finish with this, Tony. What are your thoughts on the Kenny Omega? What is it? John Moxley. I don't know why I forgot his name there for a second. Exploding barbed wire match.
You talk about ESP, man. I knew you were going to get to it. And my God, everybody.
I saved it for last.
Yeah, everybody seemingly on this planet has asked me, and I'll go on record completely right now and say it. There's things that I could say that would probably get me in trouble, but they did contact Onita, and I was relieved once I found that out.
Well, they want to do it right.
Yeah. They, and it's funny because of all things, Onita's booked for Pogo's WWS-World Wing Spirit, and you would think, what the hell would make him turn down an indie? Kind of his feeling is once it's seen on the national TV with him, that it's going to be a step back, that people aren't going to want to clamor for more of it. They're going to see it, and he knew, too, with their big budget, there'd be a lot of bells and whistles in there. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
There's enough money from Tony Khan and his productions. That thing, I guess it's on the 7th they're going to air that, or so, they're showing it, or it's on pay-per-view. Okay, whatever the case may be. They have it within their budget to make that thing look spectacular. Having said that, they're not fooling anybody. Everybody knows that Kenny Omega and even Jon Moxley, it's not going to be to the level. I mean, there was a point where, my shirt got so hot. It started burning holes in the old shirt that I used to wear in the ring before I got that replaced. There is going to be, and at no point, it was at one point Onita went to cover me, and I had the old button-down shirt, and one of the buttons got so friggin' hot, Onita was like, "Eee!" And he backed up off of me, and he found a different way to hook my leg and pin me without having to be on it, because he knew what was going on. What happened was the explosion, the barbed wire explosion went off. It was so damn hot that the buttons on my shirt themselves were melting. I still have the old shirt, and you can see where the plastic buttons on my shirt. Do you have any idea how hot something has to be for that to happen?
Oh yeah.
But luckily for them, they don't have to go through the actual pain that, we have had to go through with the exploding barbed wire and that kind of thing. Not only that, Tony Khan is not about to risk them going through anything that painful. You tie into it, let's talk about the engineering. They have it within their budget, of course, but as far as engineering and rigging something like that up, that the way that it needs to be, no. The engineering, simply put, is not there. You can't get away with that in America, like how an explosive match should work. And most certainly they wouldn't be able to rig one up to where they could do it on, a nightly basis, which, if you look at all the results of the matches, especially the 2017 leading up to his retirement, they don't have it rigged to where you could do it night after night after night. They only have it rigged up to one time, boom, boom, big explosion.
Right.
They could, and there's all kinds of illusions that they can add in there. Whereas, the latest incarnation of FMW was a poor man's company to the point where we would have to take a majority of that shit, and the crazy, there's the crazy photos of me with my hair on fire from that damn thing. But even Matt Tremont, it prompted him to tweet out, and I know where he's coming from, because for him it's got to be frustrating. How many years did he call out Cody Rhodes in AEW?
Yeah.
How many times did he do that? And yeah, they take a match that he himself was involved in with the boss, D-Man. And Onita himself has it copywritten, where he's the king of explosion death matches. So, Tony Khan's no stupid man, obviously. Not with that kind of money, and not even business sense, and this everything as far as that goes. But so you knew that he at least had to go to Onita with, the idea. The thing, like I said, is with them and what they have to lose, it's not nearly going to be and it might be more elaborate. It might be even It might on TV even look like a bigger explosion than anything that FMW's ever done before. But fans aren't fooled. They're not stupid.
So give me the.
You could add all.
I was going to say, give me the headline when I'm putting this out. Moxley, Omega, exploding barbed wire will be. You finish it off.
It'll be a spectacle. But
what?
Will it be...
I was going to say, I know there's a but there. Go ahead.
It'll be a spectacle, but it won't be genuine. That I can guarantee.
There you go. That's a great headline right there. Okay.
I just thought about it. Why did
make
they...
sense?
I think going in, everybody knows what to expect and what not to. I saw even John Moxley took to social media and put it out there saying, if you don't like it or you don't like the kind of match that this is, just don't watch. No, it's not that. It's for so long, the people that would want to tune in to see what they're going to do out of more of a curiosity, Onita and FMW wrote the book on that for the last quarter of a century. And then you're just going to have two guys in America just, hey, we're doing this match. There's video footage of Onita going and meeting with Vince McMahon back in 1997. This ties into the whole ECW thing that you had mentioned even earlier.
Yeah.
Where, they had Onita come in, and Onita was in the midst of doing the whole, like the elaborate robe and everything. And, he was just doing the more traditional Japanese thing where, he was in the middle of the Zen thing where he was a heel, and it didn't, if they knew the significance of Onita showing up at ECW, but it was the way he did and the way that he was dressed and him being in half of his heel persona that it just kind of, bombed for the most part. But in all reality, he was here because he was meeting up with Vince McMahon anyway to discuss doing an explosive barbed wire match here in America. And Vince McMahon himself. It was with Onita and
talking about?
Big question mark. It was probably going to be with Funk, I would imagine.
Maybe Cactus? Probably, right?
Yeah, if I likely chances are, if I come across that footage, because it's actually like the video of taking the video off of somebody watching it, because the original got pulled off of YouTube. But the whole thing where Onita walks into the offices and you see him meet Vince McMahon and shake his hand, and they're going to have their business meeting. Vince himself looked at the zoning and looked at the athletic commissions and realized we couldn't do this, and Onita's plan is still to come here and do one. But he realized, with the whole that whole thing with CZW was brutal. The once in a lifetime
thing. It didn't work
thing.
out the way he expected, right?
Yeah, and because he figured, well, they have to have, or they'd be able to at least do one in America, right? And I was like, yeah, but not like the ones that we have. I was like, it's just not going to. And then from there, it was Wild 7, Satoshi, who wound up passing away from stomach cancer. I remember him all the way leading up to, he's going, oh my God, this is going to be terrible. He's like, Onita's going to be so upset. And I'm like, there's nothing that they can do, zoning wise or anything else.
Yeah.
Like they had the fire marshal there, like threatening them. Yeah. I mean, there's just so many laws. And the problem is too, that between Onita and his girlfriend, Onita figured, like, between him and Mayuko, they figured that maybe they were able to read up on all the laws, like in Florida and that kind of thing, and they were able to get away with the explosion and the bomb and that kind of thing. And I'm like, obviously they can't take it on the plane with them, otherwise that would have been the easiest solution, was just for Onita to bring his own gimmick here. And but that's not going to happen too. It all goes down within the confines of the engineering. You know what I mean? And to pull that off here in America, I mean, my God, what kind of zoning permits and everything else would you need that ties into that?
Right, yeah. It's very dangerous situation. You got to be, they're not going to allow it for the most part anywhere. So
Yeah, extremely. I mean, we're stuck at the stalemate. I think that AEW couldn't wait to pull the trigger because they're like, oh, all right, we got the blessing now. They don't know what they're getting themselves into.
Right.
I hope for their sake they make it look like something. But
I have a feeling they'll make it look like something, though. I mean, it won't be like you said, it'll be a spectacle, but it won't be authentic. But I don't know. I have a funny feeling it's going to be okay, though. We'll see. Let's see. Let's give them a chance. Let's see what it looks like.
I'll never forget the entire tour of Sapporo. It was me taking that and a double explosion like night after night after night. So the very first night that I took it, it was so funny because it was Onita's old lady herself that came to me and she goes, I've never seen that. And she goes, neither has he. And I go, what's that? And she goes, you crawled on your hands and knees all the way back to the locker room. I go, it was exploded, man. It was an explosion, man. I mean, how else are you going to sell that? Other than people carrying you out. I mean, if you got it, I was like, if you noticed, I didn't get up to my feet. Because I figured, it's an explosion. Why would you just get up,
just walk away?
And the rest, the rest of the nights, it was anybody that I was teamed with. It was Nozawa, and it was night after night. It was different partners and that kind of thing. It was him, and it was Hashimoto that would just had me picked up under one arm, and they were just like basically dragging me back. And even when I went out there with Tremont and DJ, it was those guys that were like dragging me out of there. After being in the explosion and that kind of thing. It's like I said, I mean, they have enough camera angles and they have enough of a budget where there's no reason this thing shouldn't look absolutely spectacular. But the whole appeal to doing those was that with a poor man's company and a very poor person himself, Onita, that somebody had to be sacrificed. Somebody had to go through the pain of taking a real live explosion. And two, on top of it, even after that, when I did the one for 18 Pro Wrestling, I mean, the exploding the landmine outside the ring, people didn't take into consideration, not only was it the explosion that I was falling into, but it was a board with barbed wire all in. So, I mean, you're laying in barbed wire, helpless. Real barbed wire.
Yeah.
So I don't see AEW going anywhere near anything that drastic, anything that crazy. That's just not going to happen.
Yeah, no,
those guys have way too much to lose. They're not technically deathmatch guys. You know what I mean? So you don't realize. Somebody was telling me they used clay the one time with barbed wire. Kenny Omega had done some kind of barbed wire, and they used like some kind of like red clay on his back or something crazy like that.
I never heard that one. But...
Those guys just have way too much to lose to be putting themselves in the midst of something that's that dangerous.
Yeah, a lot of money on the line.
I just don't see it, especially when you can and you have the budget to throw in enough of a distraction so that guys like that don't really, really have to take that. I mean, from the one in Yokohama, the explosion with the barbed wire on the board was so bad that, I had that same scrape all the way down my leg. It was this thing was it was about as long as from my knee up to my hip. I don't see either one of those guys doing anything that crazy. I really don't.
I definitely agree, but we'll see what happens. All right, Tony, I have to let you go. I have pick my brother up from work in about 20 minutes. So this was a fun one though. We hit a lot of fun stuff here, a lot of good wrestling stuff. Joey Janela, the barbed wire matches, CZW, old friendships, trying to get into wrestling, Fremont, everything. We got a lot of good stuff in here. So this was an excellent interview.
Yeah, I want people to understand too. It's not like you come to me with any of the questions. No, literally, folks, he just pops this on me. From the minute that I get on. Yeah,
you're one of the few people that I might when we do an hour and a half easily.
I don't come on here with 50 questions written down. I might have 2 or 3 subjects. Like coming into this, the only thing I had written on my screen here, just so I wouldn't forget, was obviously the Moxley Omega. And just pretty much that's it. I didn't write any of the Joey Janela or the CZW or any of this stuff down. That was the only thing I just didn't want to forget that because it's coming up. So we don't really need a script when we do this.
Yeah, and when I usually tell people that I still believe in kayfabe, there's a lot more that can be said, but that's where I still believe in kayfabe. Is
you can't tell everything.
It's stuff that would get me in trouble anyway, because it's stuff that I shouldn't be talking about. But I know what part to extract out of that I know for the public record that needs to be out there, that came from Onita himself, that he was very public about, but didn't go public with. And I don't blame him. I mean, talk about a guy that's got a lot to lose, it's always a pleasure. It's always so great to have the platform and, somebody that vibes.
Absolutely.
The two of us read each other's minds half the time when we're posing things to one another. So,
Tony, I still have to see that. I still haven't seen that Action Park documentary. I don't know even where to look for it. I looked on YouTube. If you ever see a link for that, send it over, because I know it's from last year, but I still haven't seen it.
I promise you I will.
Somewhere online.
Yeah, and I'll bring up another thing too. Episode that we overlooked that was an actual dandy. You remember the one with the old man, and the guy goes to him and he goes, "What do I need?" And the guy's like, "Sir, you got everything you need." And then the guy threatens the old man, and the old man gives him a pair of scissors. And then the guy goes to go up in the elevator, and his scarf around his neck, he almost gets hung in the elevator. Remember this Twilight Zone episode?
You're talking about a Twilight Zone episode?
Yes.
I don't remember that one.
This one deserved an honorable mention. I watched this past week. So, don't you remember it ends with...
I never saw, or I just forgot about?
Oh, wow. Yeah, it's from the very first season. And then the old man, later on that night, he tracks him down the street and he goes, "Listen, I'll break every bone in your damn body. You give me what I need." I've seen the magic that you've worked, because at one point he hands him a pen, and then ink drips out of the pen, and it drips on the winning pony. And the guy goes and he wins like $250, which was a shitload of money in 1959, right?
Yeah.
And then he goes back to the old man again. He's like, "Look, old man, you're going to give me what I need right now. Otherwise, I'm going to break every damn bone in your body." And then the old man goes like, "All right." And he winds up with a pair of shoes. And he tells the old man, "I don't like these. These are leather soles. They make me slip everywhere." And he's like, "Sir, I told you, you got to stop bothering me. I gave you everything I need." And then the guy winds up getting hit by the car.
Oh, man, I got to look for that one.
Man.
I never started that one. None of that rings a bell, and I've been watching it since I was a kid. I got to check that one out.
That'll be my homework, to send you that one. And if all else fails, I put it on DVD and I send it to you. That and the documentary for Action Park.
Action Park. I'm dying to see that.
Yeah, they had a brief
Tony.
15-minute. Yeah, they had a brief 15-minute one, but no, this is the full-length feature. But all right,
all right, Tony.
Looking good though.
All right, we'll talk again soon. Thank you.
Absolutely, thank you so much again, Sam. As always.
You got it.
You've been listening to Reckless Airwaves Radio. Check us out daily at recklessairwavesradio.com for all the latest Reckless interviews, as well as other Reckless shows, including The Rob and Slim Show, Corrigan's Corner, and Straight to the Point with Percy Crawford.
Yeah, we don't want to do anything to scare your children. That's the last thing we want to do. We don't want to scare anybody.